Good evening. I'm Michael Dean, and I want to share with you a personal story. In April of 2010, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, as common as breast cancer is among women, it's quite rare among men. In fact, last year in the United States, with its population of 330 million, there were only 2,000 diagnosed cases of male breast cancer. It was first detected as a lump in my breast during a routine dermatology exam, and then confirmed through biopsy at the Mayo Clinic as an invasive ductal tube carcinoma, and mastectomy surgery soon followed. A couple of years before this surgery, I felt a yearning to learn more about what it meant to be Jewish, especially since I had grown up in a secular home. And so I joined Partners in Torah, a distance learning program where I was paired up with a rabbi in Borough Park, Rabbi Yehoshua Falk, and we would learn Jewish texts over the phone once a week. During this time, we'd become quite close, and so I shared this health issue with him, quickly adding, "Que sera, sera, what will be, will be." He asked me what I meant by this, and I said, well, Jewishly speaking, my understanding was that on the previous Rosh Hashanah, a judgment on me was made, and on Yom Kippur it was sealed, and now I was resigned to my fate. Rabbi Falk said, "Michael, a diagnosis is not a decree. Yes, it's true. A judgment was made on you the previous Rosh Hashanah. But that was for the Michael Dean who appeared before the heavenly court at that time." He said, "Your challenge now is to change your persona, but to do so for the right reason and in the right ways, so that you will appear as a totally different person." I found that interesting, and I asked him, "What do I do now?" He said, well, Jewish approach to personal change and transformation is contained in the 3 T's of teshuvah, making amends with people and with God, tefillah, prayer and also study, and tzedakah, giving of yourself and your resources. I said the 3 T's, I thought that was only for the High Holy Days. He said that certainly is a focal point of the High Holy Days. But in reality, the 3 T's are contained in our daily prayers throughout the year. I said, okay, I'm in. Please tell me exactly what to do now. Rabbi Falk said, Michael, I can suggest to you what you do, but as far as how you go about doing it, that's up to you. So I decided to address tefillah first. I began by praying for other people, for their health and healing. And then I did something that I had never done before in my life. I prayed for myself. I had not wanted to share this health issue with very many people, in part because, well, frankly, I was self-conscious. And also because this is such a rare diagnosis, I questioned whether it had much relevance. And then Rabbi Falk told me of a statement in the Talmud which reads, if you save a life, you save a world. And this resonated with me. And so I began to share this health issue with others and how I was approaching it Jewishly. Eventually writing an article that was published in Mishpacha magazine and then picked up as a post on the largest Jewish learning website. To my amazement, soon I had more than 100 people praying for me, and learning on my behalf, which was extremely meaningful to me. At that time, we were living in a small town in Sedona, Arizona, and I found a group of men who had never studied Jewish texts before. And so I started a study group, the GEM group, JEM, Jewish Education for Men. And for the next 2.5 years, we would meet in my home for an hour and a half each week, learning Pirkei Avos, wisdom of the sages, which focuses on, large part, on Jewish morals and Jewish ethical behavior. A group that still exists, but in a different format, since we have now moved to a religious community in Scottsdale, Arizona. As well, my wife and I became more scrupulous in our observance of Shabbos. The next area I decided to address was tzedakah, because both my wife and I had grown up in secular homes. We had not been Jewishly responsive to people, to organizations, and to causes. And so, with the encouragement of Rabbi Manis Friedman, we started the National Jewish Education Foundation with the mission to provide funding for Jewish programming, Jewish learning, and experiential Judaism. And then it was time, long overdue, to turn my attention to teshuvah. I had previously strong ties that in some cases had become frayed, in other cases unraveled. Some relationships that were broken and in need of fixing, and some obligations to God, to people, to organizations, and to causes that had gone unfulfilled. And to address all of these, I came up with a mnemonic that I call the 5 R's, covering the steps in the teshuvah process: recognition, review, regret, restitution, and resolve. Recognition was becoming mindful, owning up to past behaviors that were in need of corrective action. Review was understanding how I had gotten there in the first place so that I wouldn't fall into past bad practices. Regret was expressing sorrow, remorse, that not only did these situations exist, but I had allowed them to persist. And then following these 3 steps, they led to restitution, making amends. For people, this meant seeking them out to make my apologies. If that wasn't possible, talking to them over the phone or in writing. And for those members of my family and friends that had passed, traveling to their grave sites to pour out my heart. And then after recognition, review, regret, and restitution, the 5th step was resolve. A commitment that if I were ever in a similar situation, that I would behave differently. This health issue experience that I have shared with you has taught me valuable lessons. I've learned that if I'm going to change my persona, that it has to be for the right reasons, and I have to go about doing it in the right ways, not superficially. I've learned that a diagnosis is not a decree, and this applies not only to me personally, but to family and friends and others who are in need of healing, be that physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And I've also learned that there is a meaningful Jewish approach to personal change and transformation through the 3 T's of teshuvah, making amends, tefillah, prayer and study, and tzedakah, giving of myself and my resources. Thank you for listening.